Okay, so I did effects of parents with mental illness. Why this matters is this is my dad. He's about y'all's age in this picture, 19, 20. And he suffers from major depression and anxiety and also substance abuse. His mother was really, really sick after he was born, I think is what now we know as postpartum depression, and she was actually in the state hospital for most of his life up until he was 18. And he actually went home to home. Other people took care of him growing up because his dad had to run a ranch and his other siblings had to help, and he was the youngest. So that's why this matters to me. 1 in 5 adults struggle with mental illness, which means there are a lot of children out there who have parents that struggle with mental illness. Types of mental illness: mood disorders, anxiety disorders, personality disorders, eating disorders, psychotic disorders, trauma-related, and substance abuse. This actually opened my eyes and remembered that, not all mental illnesses are invisible. Some are very visible, and some come in the form of having a bad relationship with food and not just like feeling down or not being able to control our emotions or taking on a different personality. So this was just a good reminder that there are a lot of types of mental illnesses that people suffer from. Half of children who use psychiatric services have a mentally ill parent. That is a lot. That's 50%. Substance-related disorders are the most common in parents who have a mental illness by 20%. And the risk for this, for the kids, is developing social, emotional, and behavioral problems. And throughout this slideshow, I'll kind of give you my personal testimony on where I fit in under that. 61% of children whose parents have major depression, like mine, so I fall into this category, develop mental illness over the course of childhood and adolescence. Most children are not always aware that their parents are mentally ill. They think that what their parents are doing is the right way to live. It is the right thing to do, which is why they pick it up, they do it, and they deem it right, because they don't see anything wrong with it, because the person that they trust and love the most, mom or dad, or mom and dad, this is what they're doing. So behavioral effects of parental mental illness, there's a lot of them. You can get drawn into like parental problems, marriage problems, get stuck in between it, poor academics, when stuff's going on at home and things are unpredictable, trying to go to school and concentrate and do things, that's really difficult. Mood disturbances and poor emotional regulation, feelings of anxiety and guilt. I know a lot of kids think it's their fault for some reason. They take on this responsibility that the reason their parents act the way they do is because of them. There is increased risk of drug use and poor social relationships in children of parents with mental illness. You also develop negative coping skills through natural observation by watching your parents cope negatively with their illness and what they're going through. So again, you think it's right because you don't understand that it's an illness. It's just what your parents doing. It's not just behavioral effects. There are environmental effects: divorce and separation, unemployment when you don't show up for work because you can't, financial hardship, poor housing, discrimination. There's a ton of discrimination that goes against people with mental illness, especially people with schizophrenia, dissociative identity disorder. It's very hard for them to get work, domestic abuse, and substance abuse. I didn't want to get too personal in it, but I do believe that sometimes if you can put a face to the name and a face to the issue, you might pay more attention and it might hit you more and just kind of make a little more sense. I figured I was kind of the poster child for this topic, which is why I chose it. This is me at 3. My dad, who was the mentally ill parent, was my main parent. I have very fond memories of him at this age. He was a very attentive and caring, and I have no recollection of any illness or any abuse at all at this age. 6 to 7 years old is when it really started to bloom. I was having behavioral problems in school as well as academic problems. I was tested for ADD and I started taking Ritalin, and this is also my first memory of alcohol and taste of alcohol, and observational learning. When my dad would mix his drinks, he would pour it back and forth in a cup And I would go to school, and at lunchtime I would pour my milk and my water back and forth in a cup, and I never knew why, and kids would ask me, and I really didn't understand it, obviously, until later on in life. This is me at, I think, 10 or 11. At 10, I was diagnosed with a mood disorder, unspecific, was just really having trouble regulating my emotions and kind of figuring it out. My parents also divorced at 10 due to my dad's substance abuse and illness and his lack of getting help. I was diagnosed with depression at age 12 and started my first psychotropic medication, which was Prozac. So it also affects children with stigmas, children with psychiatric disorders are stigmatized just as much as their parents are. There was a recent study of about 1,200 parents, and 25% said they don't want their children to hang around or be friends with someone who has ADHD. 30% said the same with kids who have depression, and 20% said that they wouldn't want a kid with either living next door to them, which is really sad because we don't get to choose our parents, and we don't get to choose our healing process and health process at a young age, and that's pretty sad. This is a child resilience screening. I vaguely remember something like this at my first appointment with a child psychologist. It asks questions, says things like, people around me I trust and who love me no matter what I'm doing. The question is, do you have somebody who loves you? I can talk to others about things that frighten or bother me. The associated question is, can you talk to somebody about things that frighten or bother you? I am glad to do nice things for others and show my concern. The question is, do you feel glad if you can do nice things for others? For example, are others proud of you? So it just kind of lets the psychologist find out where the kid is in their resilience aspect of what they're going through. Not every child is affected. It's kind of all over the map and unpredictable. Some parents, mental illness does not affect their child in any way, shape, or form. They survive it, they don't have any side effects, and life is okay. That's not always the case, and that's usually not the case. Mental illness alone is not sufficient to cause problems for a child and family. It really depends of your age, of the onset of illness, the severity of symptoms, the duration of symptoms, and what stage of development you're at. Really decides the impact of what it's going to be for the rest of your life. Positive parenting and showing interest in your child lowers the risk by a ton. There are protective factors, help and support from immediate and extended family members, grandmas, grandpas, and uncles, anyone who can step in and be a mentor and be helpful and kind of keep life predictable and non-toxic really helps. Psychotherapy for children, I started at 6 years old and I'm still in it today, and it has been the best thing in my life, and I love it. I believe in it. I'm an enthusiast for it, and whether you're 6 or 19 or 22, you can start anywhere, and you can really turn your life around. Positive peer relationships, just having good friends that support you and love you and show you no matter what, they'll be there and can be predictable. Interest in school and success at school really, really lifts your self-esteem. An ability to articulate your feelings, healthy engagements with adults on the outside of the home, a sense of being loved by your parent, which is so huge. Just knowing, even though they do have their stuff, but they do love you, that's a lot. There are 3 attributes of recovering adults done by a study of Lynn McCormick, who is a psychologist from the University of Newcastle. She said 3 attributes of recovering adults are high resourcefulness, a high sense of unexpected growth and empathy and compassion, and personal authenticity through higher education. And I can absolutely attest to those, being where I'm at. The conclusion of my slideshow is that there are effects of parents with mental illness, and they do pose biological, psychological, psychosocial, and environmental risks. Everyone is affected differently. There is no one way someone's affected, and there is no one guide or one treatment plan that's going to help the same people. We're all customized and all perceive trauma and things like that differently. Protective factors work. This is proven. The things that I just listed work with kids. Mental health is a larger topic now than it has been in the last 10 years. Celebrities are really opening up their platforms to talk about their mental health, which in turn, a lot more research and resources. They're donating a lot more money. We're finding a lot more things out with science, and people are actually kind of waking up and paying more attention to kids with parents of mental illness, even as adults at my age, and studying us and kind of what happened and what went there. So that is it. This is my dad and I today. We still have a good relationship. It's kind of rocky sometimes, and sometimes I get triggered, but we work it out, and overall, I love him. He's a great guy.